Jill, Lynn, welcome to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and welcome to Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers.
Yes, I'm brand new. I'm glad to find you guys. So
I
pretty
love it.
exciting. Are you all in Colorado or is
No,
everybody
we're
okay?
all over. I would say the vast majority are kind of Front Range. We have lots around Colorado. There's a Western Slope gathering fairly often, and they do workshops out in Grand Junction.
Okay.
I live in Southwest Colorado, down west of Durango. We have members from all over the country who fly in and
Wow.
come in for the
That's cool.
conference in September. Um, and it's given 40 plus years of history, there's a lot of folks who started here and have moved out but maintained their membership. So
Yeah.
good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Colorado Springs. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you reached out because I think a friend mentioned Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers to you. Tell us that story. How'd that
Yes.
come about?
I think someone saw Bethany's recent podcast, and we kind of run in the same sort of like Christian fiction, but not, like mainstream, but not like we're in that middle ground. At least I think she is, but that's where I've landed on this next book. So yeah, someone tagged me and was like, how are you not part of this? And I said, I didn't know they existed. So here I am.
Yep. Well, you mentioned Bethany. Just for those folks who don't know, Bethany is Bethany Turner, a good friend of mine down here in Southwest Colorado, a member of Four Corners Writers, and just by the way, winner of the recent Colorado Book Award in romance for her latest book. Um, so yeah, and
Yeah.
folks who want to go back a couple of podcasts and watch that interview may do so. So yeah, tell us a little bit about you have a brand new book just came out, I believe, in the last couple of weeks or last
Just
week.
last week. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Summer of Keeping Secrets.
Yes.
Very cool. And you are by no means a beginning writer. This is book number.
This is book number 12 for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Usually I have to do the math.
yeah. Well, tell us about yourself. How'd you get into writing?
Um,
Did you start?
Okay, so my first book was published in 2015. I think I started writing, oh, maybe 2012. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was even years before that. I used to say that I was writing in a closet because I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't even tell my husband I was writing at first. I just was sort of afraid to fail, if that makes any sense. And so
Sure.
I
We can
very
all relate.
quietly, yeah,
Yeah.
I would write during my son's nap times, and he is now turning 16 next week. So there you go. There's the math. But yeah, it took me a long time to come out of that shell. And then I went to a writers group in Colorado Springs. That was sort of my first step of like, I think I would actually try to publish something. And so, yeah. And I met Beth Vogt. I don't know if you know her, but she's a Christian fiction author. And she was great. She was like, whatever you need, here's my email. And that's just sort of how it all began. And then um, my very first fiction book, I actually pitched in an online, they called it Happily Editor After, and it was with Love Inspired. I thought that was a great title. And I crafted 100 words and I pitched it in this like chat, basically. I was so nervous. And the editor said, I'd like to see more. And so I sent it to her. And we went back and forth for almost a year. She really like was willing to coach me. I'm still not sure why. I'm very grateful. And she's still my editor to this day. So
Wow.
yeah.
What were some of the things that she coached you through? So, in other words, just to be clear, she didn't give you a contract right away, but she
No.
said, she gave you some advice on the manuscript. So,
Yeah.
how many iterations did you go through with that first book, and
Oh
what did she
man,
focus on?
that's a good question. We maybe only went back and forth like two or three times, but she would just, I think I tend to always write some first chapters that don't need to be there. So like you could cut my first three chapters and then you're in the action or things like that. So I feel like that was one of the things she said. And then she would read my synopsis and make comments like, this is too much back and forth. I mean, it was a romance. So it's hard to remember all of her advice, but at first I always kind of panic when an editor gives me advice like, oh no, I did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I calm down and I'm like, she's giving me free advice. And she works for Harlequin Love Inspired. So I am going to take it. And so I would, yeah, work on it and send it back. And eventually she had it for a couple of months the last time. And I thought, it's not going to happen. And then lo and behold, she actually offered me a contract. And it still needed editing at that point. Of course, you know, it's your first book. So yeah, I remember saying to her at one point, why did you give me a contract?
Yeah.
Which maybe what not something to ask your editor, but it just felt like there was a lot to fix. So
And
yeah.
what did she say? What was her answer?
She always says, like, I see the good. I see the good. And she's always been a real champion of my like voice, I would say, in writing. And so yeah.
Yeah. Now, were you a big fan of this particular genre before? Did you do a lot of reading in it, or why did you purposely target this specific genre?
I did target them because I knew that they took new authors. And because Harlequin has such a large platform, I mean, you still have to have your own, certainly, but the requirements were not as big as some of the other publishers. And I wanted to write romance. That's what I enjoy reading. Now I read everything. And I mean, I always kind of have, but at the time I just knew like that's what I wanted to focus on writing. So yes, I read, and I would suggest the same. Like if anybody was looking at Love Inspired as a line, would definitely read their books because they know what sells and they know what they're doing. And so, you know, they want you to be in that vein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is that vein? Can you define it for us and give
Mm.
us the specifics? What are the rules, the no's? What are the can do's and things you
Mm.
can't?
Um, I mean, I know some people don't like the term clean, so maybe wholesome line. So there's no swearing, there's nothing graphic. I think I read once somewhere in an email that maybe you can't even kill an animal. I don't know if that's true or if that's just something that I thought up myself. But yeah, so like if people ask me what those are like, I often say like a Christian hallmark. Not that it's exactly that, but if you want that kind of a feel good, you know, sweet story, yeah. Not that they don't deal with any hard issues, but it's definitely a light read, I would say.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
give us an idea. Tell us about the general setting and some of the basic themes in Summer of Keeping Secrets. Where's it set? What are the main
yeah.
characters, things like that?
Okay, so it's set in Dillon, Colorado. I've written quite a bit in Colorado settings, but they've always been fictional towns. And we spend time up in Summit County, and I really enjoy it. And I thought I'd just love to put this area in a book because it feels a little bit like you're getting to visit, you know, like go on a vacation in a book. So Dillon, Dillon Reservoir, of course, that's Denver's drinking water. All the snow melt. There's this row of houses right above the lake, and it's this very steep cliff that leads down. And we were driving by, and I was like, I would love to set a book in one of those houses. Like it just seemed like the setting almost felt like a character. And so this is such a random story, but my daughter, I had already started drafting it after that, and she's an avid reader. She's 19 now. And I said, I think I'm going to set a book in one of those houses. And she was like, you should put a body in it. And I was like, I did.
Yeah.
So we had a good laugh about that. So yeah, there's an article that's found in the house when they're purging, and it's about a body found at the bottom of that cliff 34 years earlier. And the grown adult daughter is like, why didn't we ever hear about this? And she starts to question her mom, and her mom doesn't want to talk about it. And so all these pieces start to come out. And of course, everybody has their own life issues that are happening. So it's a grown daughter, she's 30, grown son, he's 33, and then their mother, Marin, and she is 60, and she's a widow. So, and she grew up in that house. So she kind of has her own issues.
So, and the romantic elements?
Yes, there's still romance, but this one is much more women's fiction. So
Okay.
the
Okay.
main part of the story is, purging the house, you find the article, and then things start to unravel. But everybody has a little sideline romance because I like that in a story. So yeah.
Yeah. And but even though there's a body, it's also not set up like a murder mystery. It doesn't sound
Right.
like that's just
Because
sort of
it's old. Yeah,
that's just sort of the flashpoint that starts all this conversation.
exactly. Yeah. And the daughter, her name is Slade, which is actually her mother's maiden name. She starts to look into it, but it's not like she's not investigating like crazy because they're purging a house, but just when opportunities come up, she definitely wants to know what happened. She's very curious.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow. What so other than did you already you saw the setting which inspired the whole
Yeah.
idea for it? Was there do you have a lot of ideas just sort of sitting around just always ready to pluck out from your drawer and apply?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're the same way where like something is always coming at you and you're like,
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I write it down or I keep a private Pinterest board so that if I see like a lot of times I'll read an article too, and that will trigger something for me. And so I'll save those where I keep a file on my computer, like book fodder. I feel like so many of those don't come to see the light of day, but every so often, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
learning too that the more that I write, so I'll have an idea, I'll think this is a big deal. And then you realize, like, well, this is a tiny part of a story.
Right.
And so
Right.
I'll end
Right.
up putting together almost four ideas, to make it more of a cohesive story. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, your first book came out in 2015, and that's um,
Yes.
9 novels in this series, but also some additional books, to at least 2 or 3 other novels, plus a
Well,
nonfiction.
let's see. So it's 10 of the Love Inspired
Okay.
shorter length novels. This is my 11th, and it's the full length. And then
Yeah.
I also wrote, so back in 2015, I had a nonfiction book come out with a friend she had passed away at the time, but we were writing it while she was sick. And it was about
Mhm.
how to do friendship while someone is suffering. It's
Oh,
called
wow.
Just Show Up. So, yeah, so she was a writer. She was a big blogger. I don't know if you've heard of Kara Tippett. She was well known in Colorado, but yeah. And then we met through our daughters at school, and she said, we should write a book together.
Wow.
And I mean, certainly it wasn't maybe the book we would have liked to write together. But
Yeah.
it taught me so much writing it because I was trying to give advice, right? And so she taught me so much, and then I was able to do my best to put that in book format. So yeah, it was hard. I remember I was actually like hiving while I was writing that book
Boy.
because it was just the pressure. She was sick and it was a lot. But I don't usually hive anymore while I write. I was
Wow.
just kind of a wild situation. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, take us, I mean, given the volume in the last 9 years, take us inside your day-to-day process. You must be fairly disciplined, I assume.
Oh, that's a great question. It depends on the moment. I do like divide out my word count, and I'm terrible with math. So funny story, when I have a book due at the end of this summer, and I don't normally do like a summer due date, but it just kind of happened that way. And I was doing the math, and I said to my husband, okay, this isn't so bad. Like I could do it. And the next day I realized I had missed 20,000 words
Oh,
in my
gosh.
math. And I'm like, this is why writers should never be allowed to do math.
Yeah.
Like, so it was a little bit more dire than I thought. But yeah. So On a Love Inspired shorter book, I know that it takes me 4 to 6 months to write, and I give myself like a lot of wiggle room because I also want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I have kind of, both worlds, and I want to go to my kids' sporting events. And so, I just know that about myself. And then I work for we have like a construction business too. So I do a little bit there. But yeah, so I do not like to procrastinate at all. That makes me very stressed. So I'll say like, okay, 5,000 words a week. I back up from my due date or whatever. And some people write, 20,000 words a week, or
Yeah.
I am not that person. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Do
just, I basically just do the math. And I always tell people like, you need a due date if you're, wanting to be published and you want to send your book in. I don't think I would ever get anything done without a deadline. I just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you set a certain time of day, or do you don't care if it pops up in the morning or afternoon? You'll
Yeah, usually morning.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and during school, I just write during school hours. So like, because I've been driving my son. He turns 16 next week, so I think he'll be driving himself next year. So I think I'll have a little extra
Yeah,
time. So maybe I'll be able to get more done. But yeah, I would get home at 8 and then usually write till about 2. So kind of like part-time hours, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you look back at your first couple of books and now you look at your process now and how you approach it, is there anything in terms of just how you got more efficient or just how you think about and prep yourself to write going into a session of writing where you can be a little more, I don't know, just right to the point and not just sort of just spending time thinking and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great question. So I have a couple tricks to get back into writing when I need to. Sometimes I set a timer because sometimes fear holds me back. I'll think, I don't know what this next scene is about, or I have a little bit of an outline. And so I will set my timer for 30 minutes and I think, just write without fear for 30 minutes. That's it. You don't have to do, 8 hours or whatever. And that usually gets me going. It just makes my brain less fearful. And another thing that I have found now, I know a lot of writers have been doing this lately, but I'm not so detailed, but I will dictate into my phone, but I'm not using like a writing app or anything. I just use like a Google Doc, and I like to walk. And so my neighbors probably think I'm crazy because I'm constantly, I guess at least it looks like I'm on a phone call,
Yeah.
not just talking to myself. But yeah, so I will start like saying the scene, and it's terrible, like, but at least then when I get back, it feels like I can always fix that. But otherwise, just the blank page can be so intimidating for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
The 30 minutes of writing without fear, I think, I mean, I totally relate to that because I self-edit and I'm so particular about every word, and I feel like I need to get that sentence right before I can move on to the next one.
Yep.
And I'm afraid to just sort of go too fast. But
Yeah.
does that does that just give you a bigger block of text to edit and rewrite? Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
absolutely.
Yeah.
My first anything on a page is just horrendous. And I'm not saying that like so someone can say, no, it's not. No, it is horrendous. So I just have to get it down, and then you can fix it. Yeah. But I'm the same way as you, where I'm super, super picky. Like I care, right? You care about every sentence. And so the second or third time through, or 18th time through, whatever, um, I'm constantly honing and fixing it. Like, yeah. But that first just junky scene, I just am like, okay, just get it down.
Yeah.
And I write myself notes. They're terrible. They're like, fix this. What are you thinking? Or you wrote this before. I mean, I'm not too mean to myself, but yeah. And then I always forget to put clothes on my characters. So So I like to joke that nobody's dressed in my first drafts.
Yeah. That would make it not a wholesome
No,
book.
yeah. I definitely have to put clothes on people. So
Wow. For those who don't know, can you take us into, and I'm not sure to what extent you can or can't, into the
Mhm.
Harlequin world? It's such a massive, seems like,
It is.
effort.
Yeah.
There's so many writers, there's so many different lines.
Yeah.
Uh, are you or do you have a good picture of Harlequin and how it works and what's
Hmm.
it? I assume you as long as you keep selling books, you can stick with them for a long time, right?
I would hope so. I'm like, I do describe Harlequin as a machine in like a good way because they just know what they're doing. I love the small Love Inspired books. They're in Walmart for like $5. And so someone's grocery shopping. I mean, you can just put that in your cart. So they make it easy. They have a reader service. I don't know if you know that. And so some people get their books every month from
Oh,
that
wow.
line. And I think they can choose, I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can choose to get 2 or 4 or something like that. Um, and so, yeah, it's nice to be in that book box,
Yeah.
basically, that goes out automatically. That does not always happen. I definitely, my first book was not. I don't remember if the rest have all been, but yeah. So they're good at what they do.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
have a they have a huge market.
Yeah.
They know their readers. They know how to
Yeah.
keep appealing to their readers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you have you had the pleasure of seeing your title at a stand at Walmart?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, except for our Walmarts now, the book area has gotten so small.
Yeah.
It's a little like
Yeah.
painful. But yeah, one of my I should have grabbed a picture, but I have my very first Love Inspired book and my whole family, my son, daughter, and my husband and I, we all went and took a picture. And my son is making the best little face. He's like, it's so funny to look back on that now that he's 15. Yeah, I feel like we should redo it though. Like, how people remake a photo.
Yeah.
With the
Wow.
one. So I haven't seen the Summer of Keeping Secrets yet at Walmart. It's supposed to be there. My editor sent me a picture. Her friend found it, but I feel like my Walmart here does not stock their books very well. Not to call out anyone, but yeah, so a little bit of a bummer, but
Yeah. Does that mean it's nationally available in every Walmart? I mean, that is just huge.
yeah, I think so. I don't think that, I mean, not the little grocery ones.
yeah, yeah, but
No,
still,
yeah,
no.
but yeah, I mean, that's those Love Inspired book. Like it's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know if it's exactly the same on this longer book, if it's every single Walmart or not. Because like I said, I didn't see it in mine, but it should be. Yeah.
yeah. So are you under contract for more books going forward?
Just one more. At this point, I have one for August 2025, barring any changes.
Yeah.
That's the one that's due at the end of summer. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So they just keep kind of rolling, finish a book, get another contract, finish a book.
Yeah. So since this line is newer, it's maybe been out like 2 years. I think that I'm not sure I can get like a multiple book contract until I've done a couple with it. So in the other line, I would usually do like a 3 book contract.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And no agent. You're handling all this.
Oh no, I do have an agent. I have an
Okay.
agent. Yeah.
Okay.
She's in Colorado Springs. Well, she's Monument. Yeah. Rochelle
Oh,
Gardner. So yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
well, that's great. So you don't have to handle all the
No.
business. That would
Yes.
be negotiating and all that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you had an unusual path into the whole, business as a writer, I would say. I have not come across that particular story.
Right?
Yeah. And I assume you're now well connected with the Colorado Springs writing community.
Yes, I used to be part of the ACFW here, and I have gone in a couple of years just with like sports schedules and stuff like that with our kids. So, yeah, I just found that I had to kind of use my time to write. So, I think we go through phases in life. And so I'm thinking my son has 3 years of high school left, my daughter's in college, and it feels like I'm kind of coming into a new phase. So,
Yep. Yep.
um,
So you're not really in a position to say, I mean, maybe your advice to writers is find yourself an editor who will spend a year with you, giving you that kind of quality time. Take
oh
you,
yeah, I mean, that'd be great.
yeah,
I don't know. That was very rare. Yes. My favorite advice is usually enter contests if you can, because there's so often editors and agents that read that work. So it's like, to me, it's a freebie. I mean, you might have to pay $20 or something like that to enter a contest. Um, but if it gets your work in front of them, and sometimes people will get offers from that kind of stuff.
sure, yeah,
And I always took, not that every piece of advice that you get is, great, but I felt like I got a lot of good advice that way, entering a contest before I was published. Yeah. And so I just tried to take it. Anytime an editor or anyone wants to tell me what to do, I like have a freak out. And then I'm like, okay, you know what you're doing.
yeah.
So, yeah.
How do you find the contest? So I guess I mean, obviously you can Google and search.
Yeah.
There are a lot of contests, and it's sometimes hard to tell what
Yes.
might
What's
be
legit?
a little bit of a scam or
Yeah.
sort of off.
Absolutely. I think for me, it needs to be connected to a conference or an organization that has a group that's writing in your genre, or yeah, like, so I was part of American Christian fiction writers for a long time. They're reputable. Um, so yeah. Do you guys do a contest? Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers?
We do a
Okay. There you
connected
go.
with, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a great Colorado Gold Rush Literary Awards,
Okay.
which at the conference itself, they announced the winners of that contest. And the
Okay.
winning entry in five, I think it's 5 or 6 different categories, gets a much more in-depth conversation with an editor or an agent as
Yeah,
the, yeah,
there you go. That's
yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
yeah,
So I do think if you can find the organization and vet them, then see what kind of contests or feedback they're offering, or critique groups. Yeah.
right, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent thoughts. Very good. Well, what a pleasure to get to know your world and find out about you. And we hope, are you already planning maybe to come to Colorado Gold in September this year or?
I just saw it and I feel like, because is it the last week in September?
Yeah.
So right now I am planning to go to Toronto because it's Harlequin's, I think it's their 75th anniversary. I hope
Wow.
I have the year right. And they throw a great party.
Yeah. Toronto's
So
great. Yeah.
yeah, so I already have that on the schedule,
Yeah.
but otherwise it looks really great. So
It is great.
yeah,
Maybe 2025 and put in for presenting a workshop or getting on a panel and
yeah, that'd
you'll
be
see
fun.
that call
Yeah.
go out early in the year.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Jill, as we wrap up, we always like to give our guests a chance to recommend a book or a writer. So
Okay.
yeah,
So I have to choose.
yeah,
Um, I think I'm gonna have to go with Becky Wade. She writes romance, Christian romance, and she's one of the first that I read when I first started writing for Love Inspired. And I've been reading her ever since. Just happy. I like a happy story. I just do. I feel like the world has so much hardship in it that, like, when I open a book, I'm okay if I cry a little bit, but I want to walk away, happy. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Great. Excellent. Well, wish you well out there and congratulations on Summer of Keeping Secrets. And we will catch up with you down the road.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.